Hey everybody, welcome back to another episode of Talking Cardboard. My name is Cory. As always, if you like the content you see here on the channel, consider subscribing. We really do appreciate it. On today's video, I am reviewing the brand new version of Great Western Trail. It is Great Western Trail 2nd Edition. That's right, today we are discussing the brand new version of Great Western Trail, and I am really excited to bring this review to you because it is one of my favorite games of all time, and this version is just revamped in a few different ways. And let's just go over the main differences first. Some of the main differences in the game, as you can see right away with the player pieces, you've got these cute little cowboy hats that they can wear on top of their heads to choose your player color. So if you want to be yellow, blue, red, or white, they have a different hat color for that. So the player pieces are really cool. They have different color meeples you can choose from as well, and you can just put that hat on top of your meeple, and that really invokes the theme really well. The artwork has changed as well. It's a little bit difficult to see here the way I have it laid out, but it's a little bit more of a watercolor wash over the board. A little more difficult to see the trails as you're going up the Great Western Trail versus the first edition of the game. First edition was just a little bit more clear on the direction you can head with the different arrows. Like I said, the trails and the arrows are a little bit more faded in this game and have more of an overall watercolor look. It doesn't look bad. The artwork is still real nice, and the watercolor look, looks nice too, kind of more appropriate for that era of, art style. But it's just a little bit more difficult to see clearly the different aspects of the board for gameplay. Another one of the other main differences here, I'll kind of take that piece off, is the player boards. So the player boards, unlike in the first edition of the game, where the player boards were just basically a sheet of laminated paper, just about, these are actually dual layered boards that have these insets where all the pieces can fit snugly in. So as you can let's see if I can do it while even holding it up. As you can kind of see, the pieces fit right onto the board, even though I'm holding it at such an angle here. And they just fit very nicely, and if you're moving the board around, they stay in place. Same thing with upgrading, let's see here, same thing with like upgrading your cowboys and your builders or craftsmen, and then your engineers, your trained engineers, those fit all nicely on the boards now as well. So that was a great new touch to the player boards versus the first edition. These feel real nice, better quality, nice and thick, and dual layered, so your pieces fit super nicely into each slot individually. Another major change with the game is directed in the center of the board right here, where when you get to the middle part of the board in the first edition of the game, you had the option with some of the buildings to trade with the Native Americans, and depending on which Native Americans you traded with, it would get you different amounts of money and so on and so forth. In this version of the game, you have either the green or the orange bandits that you can take out. So you've got these bandits along the trail that are kind of slowing you down or trying to rob you, and it's really cool with this theme, versus just trading with the Native Americans. That was a little bit more of a duller theme, but taking out these bandits, it's a lot more fun to teach the game this way too, with these bandits on the board. They act in the same way as the Native Americans in the first edition. The gameplay hasn't changed at all, other than the first spot here on the board, which gets you these new tokens, which I'll talk about here in a second. But other than it just changing from a Native American teepee to the symbol for a bandit, that's the only difference. The gameplay hasn't changed. One of the other things in the first edition of the game, on this first spot here, I forget exactly what it was, but I think it gave you 0 money for taking that token. Now they replaced it with this hand token with a card, and it's got the 2x symbol on it. And what this basically allows you to do is, there are other actions that allow you to gather these tokens as well, but it allows you to draw 2 cards off your deck and discard 2 cards from your hand to kind of cycle through the cards as you go and allow you to more easily cycle through cards. And as you all know, if you've played Great Western Trail before, cycling through cards the most efficiently you can is definitely a big deal in this game. Some of the other minor changes that they had done to this game too is just the cattle artwork is a little bit different, and I think they added more variety of different types of cattle to the game too, so it adds a little bit extra flavor. Like I said, with most of the things here in the second edition, it does not change the gameplay at all. So the majority of the game, I would say 99% of the game is exactly the same, but these minor differences and changes just change the overall look or theming, kind of the overall feel to the game. Other than the player boards, those were a major component upgrade. Everything else is just an artwork or an art style upgrade to the game overall. One of the things that I did want to mention that wasn't just an artwork upgrade was actually the addition to this variant to the game that you can either play with or play without, and these are these orange cows here, the Cemental cows, and it adds some different flavor to the game. Like I said, you can play with this variant or without it. It's up to you. We did play with this variant the time that I had played the second edition here, and it was fun. It was a fun, cool new addition to the game where when you acquire the cow, just like with all the other normal cows, you add them to your discard pile, you shuffle it in, and eventually draw them. But when you make your way to Kansas City to drop off the cows to the train and send them off to their various cities to get money and eventually points that way, the Cemental cows work a little bit different than the other cows, whereas if you have a Cemental cow in your hand when you get to Kansas City, you can discard it to one of the discard piles over there and upgrade it to the next upgraded variant of the cow, and it's to signify the cow aging and getting a little bit older. It's worth more points at the end of the game. It's also worth more money every time you get to Kansas City. And the next time you get to Kansas City with this a little bit older version of the cow, there's actually a third upgrade to this card, which is the full-size Cemental cow, which is worth 5 points at the end of the game and up to 5 money every time you get to Kansas City. They are a little bit more expensive when you're buying the calf at first, but as they get upgraded each time you go to Kansas City, they do become worth more money, more valuable with money, and more valuable points-wise by the end of the game. So if you do get a couple of those, it is a cool addition to your deck, as you can see the cows grow up and get older and become worth more points every time you get to the end of the track. So other than that, the gameplay plays completely the same as the first edition. I'm not really getting into the full details of the gameplay here because there's not really much different to talk about versus the first edition of the game. And if you're really curious about that and how it plays, you can check out one of the numerous other videos on YouTube of other reviewers discussing how the game is played. But really, I just wanted to go over the main components differences, the artwork differences, the new Cemental cow variant to the game, and just kind of my overall thoughts on it. So my overall thoughts of the second edition here of Great Western Trail, still fantastic. It's nothing to really write home about in a unique way. It's not a ton different than the first edition of the game. It does not have the support of any expansion content yet because it is brand new, and when they released the second edition of the game, unfortunately, they did not include the expansion in the base game box, which I thought they should have, or tried to find a way to integrate it into the main board. That would have been really cool, really neat to see, but they did not do that. But other than that, the base game here is pretty much 99% identical to the first edition of the game, other than that Cemental cow variant. These little tokens that you can acquire are new as well, that allow you to draw 2 cards off your deck and then discard 2 cards out of your hand to kind of cycle through your hand a little bit easier throughout the game. So that was kind of a neat addition to make the game a little bit less difficult. The mission cards are all the same. The building tiles are all the same. Everything else is the same. So what do I think? Do I think you need to go out and buy this game if you have the first edition? Not really. Like I said, the gameplay will feel almost exactly identical to the first edition, but do I recommend it if you don't have the game already? Yes, definitely. Great Western Trail is one of my favorite games of all time. Highly recommend it. The gameplay is so smooth, so satisfying. It is a heavier Euro style game, so it's a little bit dry with the gameplay, but I just love the hand manipulation, the hand management, kind of the slight deck building that you have mixed with this worker placement. It's kind of like a worker rondel map where you just keep going around in circles and doing these different actions, building out different building tiles for yourself that give you unique actions, and other players are building out different tiles for themselves to give them unique actions, and each spot you land on gives you a different action to try to acquire cattle and get different cows to your hand by the time you get to the end of the line, because for each unique cow you bring to the market, the more points and the more money you get. And you just kind of keep, rinsing and repeating that cycle until the end of the game. But it's just a really cool efficiency puzzle with a lot going on, and I highly recommend it. So if you have any additional questions about Great Western Trail, either the first edition or the second edition, please leave them in the comments below. I would be more than happy to answer your questions. And yeah, this is just kind of an overhead view of what everything looks like, a few of the other things that is new to the second edition versus the first edition, and I'm sure I might be missing 1 or 2 minor details that I didn't go over here, But like I said, leave them in the comments below if you are curious about any other specifics. So until next time, you all have a great day and have fun gaming.